afternoon, or night. Depends on where you are. You know, we're gonna see what we're working with. Hope everybody doing good. And be on here for a little while, just see what's going on. Just thought I'd come on here and chop it up a bit. So anyway, here we are live. Putting a little disclaimer up if you even acknowledging these so-called holidays, which I don't acknowledge. But I thought I'd come on here just to see if anybody wants to come on here. I ain't gonna be on here all day. I just got through doing some videos. We gonna see. I will be here today. Um, Today, maybe tomorrow. Not on Sunday though, but yeah. So taking my sabbatical Sunday off. But anyway, I come on today. Yeah, I thought I'd come on today. I'm just here early today. Yeah. Was gonna come on about how you doing. I was gonna be on like an hour ago, but I was working on some videos, so I got some more videos down the shoot coming. So if you feel like talking today, I'm on for a while, so I'm not gonna add nothing. This is just gonna be a stream that's straight up. So if people come on, they come on. If they don't, they don't. I'm not gonna gyrate it. So we're just gonna see what we got. But anyway, we're gonna go from there on. But hopefully everything is going good. And what's on your mind? What's happening? How you doing? How you doing? Good to see you today. Thank you for coming through. Hope you're having a good day. Thank you. Yeah, he said that, but you know, he hasn't done anything to take people from not. I mean, he's channeled Michael Jackson most of his career. So what is he talking about? I mean, he's been basically a mini me version of trying to emulate Michael Jackson. I will have to do a video about that. He talking about he don't want to be compared. But I mean, you be doing Michael Jackson tributes all the time. I mean, you know, he got a point in the sense he's been around 30 years. I mean, 20 years. But yeah, thank you for coming through, Linda. Yeah, but what has he done to make people think that he ain't a broke double junior whopper Michael Jackson? I mean, that's his whole shtick. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. You get people to start comparing you to others when either A, you emulate too much, or B, you haven't created your own identity. And he hasn't created his own identity. He's been in a Michael bubble forever. So until he gets out of that. That's how I look at him. And I look at him as a triple junior whopper Michael, double junior whopper Usher. He just is, because he's a homogenized singer with homogenized catalog, and I just don't really see the big hoop about him. So I don't get the hype about him. Well, I'm not gonna quite even say all that. I mean, you can't now see. In Kendrick's case, though, it's a bit more complicated because big as Run DMC was, they didn't win half the awards he did. They didn't get to perform at the Super Bowl. They didn't. There's a lot of things that he's accomplishing that they didn't get to do because the timing. So that's 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 apples oranges. You know, but the Michael Jackson Chris Brown thing is personal because Kendrick's style doesn't remind me nothing of DMC. He doesn't have the personality. He doesn't create anything that people gravitate towards clothing. Well, it became like a lifestyle movement. Whereas Chris Brown then obviously ate off of Michael Jackson's tree, bit the limbs, the roots, the whole nine. So that's not quite the same comparison. But you do have a right to what you like. It's just that you don't get mad when people say, hey, that's what you remind me of, because that's what you really are. And to most people, when I see Chris Brown, he's basically like a junior, broke, triple junior whopper Michael Jackson after school special. A cat that, yeah, he got wheels. He's an okay singer, you know, and he's got the longevity, but it ain't like people sit around debating his material with the best of the best. Even though I don't put a whole lot of stock in that greatest R&B all time list, you can debate that. In the poll, Usher was 12, Chris Brown was 29, and Michael Jackson was 3. So Usher and Breezy combined aren't in Michael Jackson's area code. And Usher is a better artist than Brown, but it's like they're nowhere near him. So that's all I gotta say about that. So I don't have a problem with again, people to have freedom to who they like, etc. Well, yeah, but again, look at who you can put him with. Usher's the best showman of them. Brown got the wheels. Omari has some style. Yeah, but they all broke Michael Jackson's. I mean, that's at the end of the day, all it is it's like the Michael Jackson camp. And Usher's probably the most the closest accomplished of them. He had a better run. Brown got hype, but none of them. You can put all three of them together, and they're not giving you one of Michael. Because if you grew up on Michael Jackson, watching these clones and these turkeys that are just the tears off, it's just not hitting. It just doesn't hit. We can sit here and we can debate all we want to. I do it for fun and games, but it doesn't really last long. They're not on his level. None of them. Not on their best day. You give me the best Chris Brown song, the best Usher song, the best Omarion song, and tell me where does it fit on Off the Wall and Thriller. Tell me where. Because they're not seeing Michael at his peak in his prime. They're not. They're nowhere near it. They're good at what they do. Omarion had a couple all right songs I like. Usher, I give him about 6, 7 songs maybe. Chris Brown about three, 2 or 3. That's not one of Thriller though. I'm just calling it like how I see it. Okay, please keep on talking because I want to make sure that you're still alive and talking. So let's go. Well, he got paid to be a yeah, drugs. People say anything in that business. They say anything. I remember that quote. I wasn't even going to bring that up. I hope that his drug dealer was good when Chance said that because he was snorting something good. Justin Bieber ain't even the half of nothing. Lighting the cakes artistry. He's not even the half of Chris Brown. Got a better vocal, but he ain't that memorable. He was not even good as half as Usher. Don't get me started. They always get paid to say the most ludicrous things, and they sell that stuff out, and people be. That's why Chance the Rapper fell off too. Sound like a crackhead. If Bieber could even spell off the wall, bless his soul, that's not gonna happen. So, but good luck with that though. I mean, they just act like those things just happen overnight. They don't. It takes a lot of work to make a career. And a lot of these turkeys ain't even got the half of it. But they got gimmicks and people telling people lies all the time. They need to stop lying to people. If you didn't live through music of the '90s, and even aspects of the '00s, I seen artistry in different eras. There is not that same artistry today. The music today, because first of all, technology alone, you know, you had videos, you had artists who had concepts. You don't have that today. You don't have the same competition today. You have nothing to get excited about today like that. You're getting excited about technology. You ain't getting excited about the music. It's a big difference. I don't think the '80s was the end all be all, but I think that what it did, it had a larger than life persona. Be honest with you, I thought there was a lot of smoke and mirrors with the '80s. I thought the '70s was the better era, if I'm honest. But the '80s had these larger than life characters, and everything was like a standard in the sense that if a record hit big, you made a statement. That's the difference. Al Green. That's not a real debate for many reasons. Al was more of a leader artist than Lou Rawls. Lou Rawls was bad, but his best stuff ain't touching Al Green. Lou would almost be like, I don't want to say loungy, and he was versatile. But come on, Al Green was like soulful. I mean, he changed the game. He right there with Marvin Gaye in the '70s and Stevie. He's right there with the creme de creme. Lou was like second tier. Good though, and Lou could give you a run, but Al Green was like on another level. That one is easy. And I like Lou, but he not seeing no Al Green though. Nothing in the song because it comes down to the songs. And Al had some of the greatest songs ever. Love and happiness. Let's stay together. Still in love with you. I mean, his run of hits. Lou can't see it, but I like Lou a lot though. Now that's more comparable. Beanie Man. Shabba couldn't even hardly make out the half he's saying. He was catchy for a moment, but I like Beanie better. Well, most people would say Bob Marley. You know, the Wailers. But it been around. It's just that Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and them got the credit, and so he's like the face of it. But that's dance hall on Beanie and Shabba dance hall. Yeah, so that's how I look at that. But depending on who you ask, though. You really switched up there though into reggae, so that's all good though. But yeah, most people gonna tell you about Marley though. He's kind of like the blues. What do you think about this? They got a right to talk. They did a job. No one's gonna feel sorry for them. And the thing about it is an overrated case. I mean, people pay for freaky deaky all the time. That's nothing new. He's being used in a way because see, this is the thing. They're using him for something that's got because they corporate. He was in corporate America. As if corporate America people don't get freaky. Give me a break. Even though it's not the same thing, Jeff Bezos just had a billion-dollar wedding in Italy. He flew people out to his whack wedding. Give me a break. Unless Diddy was pimping, there's nothing to it. It's overblown. Jay Z, and they gonna get somebody. They gonna get somebody. Birds of a feather. Well, let me say why this is a mark either way. He's a felon now. They got a lean on him. He can't even sneeze fine. He coughs funny. They got a mark on him. He gonna be ostracized, and people are gonna be funny about how they do business with him. So Jay Z's on the next line though. It's already started. But I bet you one thing: if the feds go after somebody next time, they won't be so stupid and get caught up in fanfare. They got caught being cocky, and they tried to R. Kelly did it. They tried to use the same strategy. Didn't work on them. don't think you heard the last of anything. They're gonna come up for a lot of money. Just have a couple 100 million, but I don't think nobody gonna touch him though. His corporate days is done. Yep. Thank you very much for that. Cindy Lauper versus Deborah Harry. That's a good one. Now that's a good one. Oh, Deborah Harry. Lauper had big songs, but hers came in a wave. But Deborah Harry, she had she was more versatile. Because when you can go from Call Me to Rapture and the tide is high, more versatility as an artist. It's not a bad argument though. Good points on that one, Time. Thank you, Time, for mentioning that. Appreciate that. It was true. It is true. But I did like Tim Laufer. She had some songs though. Mm-hmm. Or if you want, please let me know. Keep the conversation flowing. Let's talk, talk, talk. What's happening? How you doing? Thank you for coming through. Feel free. Go ahead, Tom. Appreciate you. Go ahead. I'm all ears. Okay, I heard you first time, Felix. Tell me what's up. Tell me where you coming from. All right, Tom. Yeah, whatever you want to say, feel free, man. I welcome it. Okay. Yes, we are very honored to have Charlene here, and thank you, Tom. If you celebrate, which I don't, so make note of my poll question, Charlene. I don't celebrate it. For those who do, that's their choice. Oh yeah, they do that on purpose. That's how they always do. That's always what they do. They've always done that. That's exactly what they do. Symbolism. It's like a gang sign, and they never tell the truth. So that's exactly what they do. Time. Keep you blind and wounded and dumb. I want you to act all, trying to see if anybody wrote anything. All right, everybody. Let's get on the ball. Get this conversation rolling. I need some conversation. If you want me to stay on for another 30 minutes, if not, I'll just depart in a half hour. I'll definitely back on tomorrow night on Sunday. What's this? OJ Chapman stay. Okay. Well, Tom, thank you for coming through. Glad that you came through and hope to see you soon. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be on Sunday. No, not at all, Charlene. Not at all. Just maybe wasn't the right person didn't come along. understand how that would be. People have different things that have happened in their lives. Who knows? To an extent. To an extent. As long as it doesn't impact other people, it all depends. To an extent. I think when you crave all that kind of freedom and you're into that kind of sort of thing, you become, you know, um, conquered by it. But the downside to that is that you don't catch yourself. So gotta be very careful with that. That's with anything. Too much of anything can be like an addiction. So gotta be very careful. I think that what she was trying to say, time was more about being 40. It's at the age. But that's what she was talking about. She wasn't talking about necessarily just being alone, being by yourself, and how people are so quick to judge you in society because you aren't with someone and they assume that something's wrong with you. You don't have no children or this or that. Sometimes it just ain't your call. So I got exactly where she was coming from. You get a very too quick to reach society that tells you that you got to meet the social norms and you don't meet them. And they throw flags on you. That's how I interpret. And I could be wrong, but that's how I look at it. So that's how I look at it. Okay, let's get some conversation going because it's getting quiet again. Yeah, that's now that is true. That is true. When people start bringing up that red flag mess, they trying to using this like a get out from association because they don't really want to have to deal with any feelings. I agree with that. I had an episode happen to that. I had a story about that long time ago when I knew pull that mess talking about well if you walk in front of or this red flags. Kept trying to find reasons to find fault. That's usually that's usually sadly that's the truth. There's truth in that. Start using that criteria, and they're using it as excuse. Hmm. So that that is something that is evident. Hmm. That is something that's very evident. Hmm. I'm not wasting my time watching that garbage. They trying to do like Bobby and Whitney. I'm not wasting my time with that mess. That's because we need some money. I need a bag. That's what that's about. A lot of Ashanti's money that was tied up with Irv Gotti, and a lot of Nelly, again, that's what that's about. When you start doing reality TV, that means I need money. And we hope that y'all cash this views, clicks and views, and we can get us a concert and we can cash out. And also, they're kind of like, let's call it 100. That's a broke Jay Z Beyonce situation. Well, Bobby and Whitney's situation was unique because he was an important artist at one time. She was definitely an important artist, and that was a unique situation. This here, and then the thing about Bobby and Whitney is they had crazy chemistry, and it was explosive, and it was a train wreck, car wreck. But you were gonna watch it, and you were just like, "Whoa, glued." Nelly and Ashanti are not interesting personalities. He's been in the leading man role of trying to offset to the female, and to an extent, but he just, it just ain't there. And Ashanti is, well, I don't know. I think Nelly and Ashanti love each other too. Bobby and Whitney was hot, was like fire and rain though. It had a lot of, it was a whole different element. Nelly and Ashanti's story because they broke up and came back, but they're not compelling like Bobby and Whitney. You know that just you just can't compare it. You can't compare it. That's a different hit. That's a different hit. But they if they can get some numbers, you know, that's what it's about. Nelly going on his crusade against Kamala Harris and politics. He needs any kind of thing. Realistically, he's also trying to get the Ti and Tiny situation too. So but he tried too hard though. Well, she dug him a lot. I think she came back to him, but I think there's truth to that. I don't know what's in her heart of hearts, but I know one thing: she for them streets, and that's a fact. You know, everybody knows she was Irv Gotti's side piece, so you can say what you want to say. You was already out there for them streets, so it's not like people are gonna think that you just because once you've been turned out like that, and how you got blew up in the industry 20 years ago, we already know. I already know. And then Irv got mad because he the one that kind of got away. So it just probably much, it was a love loathe thing. I think he did catch feelings as time went on, and then it kind of got through. But his machismo wouldn't let him just let it go. And they went through so much. Because originally he was the Jay Z to her Beyonce. Hood style. Hood style. And that's what it was. And then, remember, she blew up before Beyonce did solo career, and Irv was A&R. You know, he was pushing records and all that, so he just didn't rap. But he pushed artists. He had hits on everybody. So, I'm kind of like the one that got away. All these people want to celebrate the fourth. They crack me up. But I'm not a mind reader, and I don't really get into the whole depths of it. But that's again, I'm not. I don't have no intentions of watching no corny show. I'm not wasting my time. Nelly doesn't interest me, and she doesn't interest me like that. Let's see. Good question, Dakota. It's a yes and a no. Yes, because of his association with all the people involved, and if they really wanted to take him out, they had other angles. But then there's no because there's other people involved. Because Jay Z's in the mix too, and so it's a tricky situation. Snoop's in the mix too. Their names are as big too, so there's others involved. Um, the way he did it, which is slick, is that it was no money exchange. Now he just so conveniently happens to be in the Denzel Spike Lee movie. See, them nothing but cats in the industry. So how real can I feel they are? I'm gonna tell anybody who's willing to listen. If anybody that wants to have a real relationship in that industry, there are exceptions to the rule. There are exceptions, but most of the time, you don't be involved with people that work in the same profession as you if you really want to have a successful union. Because usually those things are orchestrated. As far as that goes, I don't buy it all the way. But I know one thing, that cat's got 9 lives, though. He been in trouble because it tends to be the same things that attracts the same thing that works against. And if you tend to be a freak, you're gonna be a freak. It's hard them to really work in the same capacity because there's ego involved, male and female. Yep, she sure did. As a matter of fact, the story is she stayed at their house working on the record, so it was in house. And it's a very personal situation, and then one thing led to another. So that's what had happened. And again, and I think that was to offset her alleged personal situation to me. You know, because Alicia a little rough around the edges. That's just my personal take. Nice looking woman, but she a little rough around the edges. But anyway, yeah, she did that with Swiss Beats, so she ain't got no room to ever talk about no moral high grounds or nothing. But this industry always putting people linking them up. It's not by accident. Uh, it can bring you close, but depends on what kind of close we're talking. A lot of times with people in the same industry, oh yeah, she's a home wrecker. But the mother is cool with them now. They cool now. The problem with the business is that when you work like that in that capacity, if you know someone is a leading man, leading woman, you know the same thing that got you into them is the same thing that can drive you away from them. So Billy Davis and Marilyn McCool come to mind. You don't have to be a star, baby. Because they've been married since they were with the Fifth Dimension. There's a few. There's a few. As long as you don't let Hollywood become Hollywood, and as long as you understand what you've got and you can balance it, you can have it. It's just a lot of times people get into that, mindset that they gotta live up their fantasy. And believe me, if you're married in Hollywood, you're gonna get so much temptation that you ain't gonna even want to do with yourself, no matter what you look like. But you know, that was real to on the situation that they had something. But I mean, it worked out for both parties when she Supremes and her solo career. But I think it's a strange situation because he taught her game and he saw something in her, and it's a real twisted reel. Can't call it convenient because you know there was no, only thing was it was employee to employee, but she still had her career on. I think she really felt something for him, and I think he did to an extent, but he was really into you know, his ego and his megalomania. He a bit much because he used all his typical chauvinist powers to, I mean, he had access, and that's the reality. He was the boss. 95 years old. I will say the greatest record man ever, a man who understood talent and made careers, really. But he was a hustler, though. Mhm. So that's how I look at it. Violet Toe. Mm, I think she really did feel something, but I thought that he was too young, too jealous, envious, and he had a lot of pent up anger, so it wasn't gonna last. He's a beady eyed turkey too. Yeah, I mean, a really good actor, very good, but I don't really care for him though. I don't really care for him. His energy is negative. Great actor though. Good to very good actor. And she went on with her thing. She was, she trips me out though. She messed with all the brothers, but she don't even marry no brother though. Cracks me up though. She's just but I though. Kind of an odd chick like that. Kind of odd. She, involved with them white cats, but she was like them brothers though. Mm, okay. yet, strangely enough, that's about her maturity level, though. You know, she married the mob with Matola, and she wanted that older gangster type of cat. And then she went in Arrested Development with this after school special cat. So it's the kind of thing that, you know, she's kind of got an Arrested Development thing going on with her. But hey, that's why people like Mariah. But I mean, really fake for who though? Because they produced two kids, um, and the maturation's about the same. So it's fake. But is she somehow above? No. I think it's because while she carries herself a certain way, it's not carried away that, you know, I don't know how, you know, it's like I said before, when I say her, it's like Arrested Development. She'd be like the 68-year-old, 15-year-old. That's how I would describe Mariah. You know, she's overcome a lot. You know, I got respect for what she's overcome, but there is a certain level of kind of like, you know, so just like the whole thing she did with her and Eminem. I don't pay Kiki no mind. Kiki be saying whatever. I will give Kiki props for saying that she will work with you though. But Kiki never blew up. So didn't mess with none of the industry's cats though. Mm-hmm. Only in the black community. Because when she did that gyration with Usher at the show, that we the ones that made her stink. But no, and, folks don't really. She was popular as a kid. Kayla Kika Bees. She did that movie with Ice Cube, and that's what really blew her up. She had what we call, um, how would I say, kind of like a broke version of Brandy. If Brandy had just done TV and film, mm-hmm, would have been a Huxtable type of personality from Cosby Show type, but nothing that, you know, you, unless you watch Tubi Time or you watch some broke movie or something, you're not gonna care about no Kiki. She doesn't have the personality to resonate like that. She ain't really crossover. I mean, she's said some, you know, some things that people like, but again, people don't sit around talking about Kiki. Just keeping it 100. You're not missing much. Long story short, you're not missing much. I mean, if I didn't keep up with certain things, I wouldn't even be really. Because I mean, really, the most of her career is when she was younger. You know, she tried to do a little singing too. You know, but she kind of be like Tamara and you know, remember Sister Sister? It's kind of like the boat she would have been on, the Morrow Sisters, and you know, like if you thinking you're gonna turn into Halle Berry or Nia Long career now, mm-mm, mm-mm. That answers the question. She did that one movie, and she's had success. Some issues with the boyfriend, husband. That's the only thing I hear about. She alright. She alright. She's alright. She got more of a career than Kiki do, but it's some tension with the that. You have to look that up yourself with that. It's a bit much though that comes out of her, but I wouldn't really waste my time with it though. Again, there's got to be people that give me a reason to go. Okay, I'm interested. She ain't one of them, but she does have some of a career though. Every time I see, her, I keep want to say Halle Berry. Cause like they give her a lot of attention in certain forms and spots, but it depends on who you define next. Taylor Swift and her about in the same boat. Gaga is too. Rihanna is kind of in that boat. It depends on if you hold Beyonce is this it person. As far as SZA, SZA is the next one that's on blowing up on the charts. Yeah, SZA. Cause SZA working with Kendrick Lamar. She's the one. If you keep up with the charts on R&B charts, you keep up with the charts. Her record tied Thriller for most weeks on the charts. SZA, I kid you not. So, but do I look at her like that kind of artist? No. But things are so manipulated today that people will come up and say, "Hey, so and so and so and so." So SZA would be the one. She passed Thriller for most weeks on the charts or something, which is hokey because again the system is so different now. It's manipulated. But Beyonce's type of popularity is the last of that kind, though. Because Beyonce was the last artist when you still had a record store. They hit like she did. No. Come on now. Stop. That's not even worth the discussion. She's two different artistries. And just because she goes by one name, no. She doesn't have Madonna's impact. Bigger in a different way, that's not really, no, no. There is no next Madonna. Once upon a time, you could have kind of almost thought Britney Spears had an extent, but she wasn't in that realm quite. Gaga would have been close because but again, no, there's no next. And Beyonce is considered legendary enough in her own career. No one says it about Beyonce. They compare it with Michael Jackson and Whitney, but they don't say about Madonna. You know, you know. That's how I look at it, though. Okay. have people going to say that about them two in the same sense. Because for one, she's a better vocalist than Madonna, and for two, she started off in a group, so you can't compare that. You can compare to Donna Ross, compare her to Turner. Madonna thing doesn't really fit my versatility, but that's the thing. Yes, I do, because I never really songs or sound like they jacked others. Her notes are she can sing, but when she oversings, it's just a squeal. And it's just always something missing. It's missing the soul. So I'm only going off the screen now because I'm just linking everything. No, I don't understand what you're saying, Marcus, because I don't celebrate it. And I don't acknowledge the flag, and I don't acknowledge Francis Scott Keys. And 1776, they brought slaves over to America, and they weren't free. 1880, 1865 was when they supposedly had Emancipation Proclamation, still not technically free. 1964 Civil Rights Bill was the first time you get to walk and work alongside someone and against the Jim Crowism. So no, I don't. And I have military in my family, and it is not celebrated. So speak for yourself. Understand? So it's funny how people think that because they're gonna think that you're gonna think a certain way, and I rock the apple cart, but it's not like that. Everybody think that you're supposed to all think the same. Well, you spent the time to come here to try to think you talking bad. So who do I think? No, I don't like it. There's nothing to celebrate. Francis Scott Keys was a bigot. Star Spangled the national anthem was racist. And no, and I'm not being hoodwinked. There's nothing to celebrate. I told you 1964, the Bill of Rights. Before that, you had separate bathrooms, sections, etc. Learn your history, know your history, be your history. I'm answering it from my perspective, though. I don't feel compelled about it. I don't see anything to get excited about a country that changed you from 1776, brought you over to a new country. And Thurgood Marshall, who was the Supreme Court justice before Clarence Thomas, and I quote, said that if I was to celebrate America's holiday, I would have been a butler. So that's Supreme Court justice talking about what 1776 meant. So how you going to, when it was to the place that held people in chains, the 1865 Emancipation Proclamation, but it was really 1964 when the rights were coming through. So I know I don't feel no compelled to doing it. So that's how I choose to. We got that right. You want to celebrate it? More power to you. Don't be mad at me because I don't. That's all. And Charlene, yeah, they can do what they want. And if you don't want to celebrate it, don't have to. That's all. That's fair. Fair is fair. Some people ain't gonna like it. Some people gonna like it. Some people are like, why are you upset? Why are you this? Because I'm a historian, and it don't feel right. It don't sit right with me. Did you not understand English? They came over in 1776. They were still slaves, black people. What does that have to do with 1865 and the Emancipation Proclamation? You're still slaves. And technically, how are you going? How would I celebrate something when they brought people over in chains? They sold the whole content to the people. The people were still slaves to build a new world. That was not freedom. And I tell people, if you don't understand stuff, you better go read, because reading is free. Actually, it used to be against the law if you're black to read. But people who don't want nothing to be told, they don't. I don't eat that garbage food, but I do miss Frankie Beverly. That's how I will say that. I will never eat meat, and I don't subscribe to that. Um, there's nothing I got there to celebrate. I'm looking at everything that's going on around me, the genocide that's happening, and ain't nothing really changed. You give me reparations, we talk 40 acres and a mule. Because when someone is celebrating something, they're celebrating that they got paid to do what they do. So, but you're entitled to what you want. hear me now? I don't know why that thing went off like that. Okay. I'm back now. I got it. Give me a one if you can hear me. I'll say this by the way. Um, I'm familiarized with the military and I'm familiarized with what everybody got to do. But at the same time, at the same time, you can have an opinion about how you feel about stuff at the same time. Bless your soul that you were able to come back and feel good and everything like that. However, don't knock nobody that don't feel that it isn't a balanced situation. That's the point, you know, because it's a very ugly situation, and it left a lot of people very bitter, you know. So, and again, like I said to you before, my family members who all were in the service all had to operate in separate barracks, which wasn't that long ago. No, I'm just making a point about it. Well, it's the new term. It's FBA. Every 30 years or so, there's a new term. Cause back in the day, you colored, then you went to Negro, then you went to black, then you went to Afro American, then African American. There's always a new term that comes along. The problem is that when we say these terms and stuff, we still are separated on the Census Bureau, and we're still not treated as full-fledged Americans. It's nice in theory, and it's nice to have these nice term names. However, what do they mean when you're still treated as a second class citizen? When they still have the 13th Amendment, 14th, when they have these amendments and things, they still fundamentally. When you've been here as long as you have and you still have black first, when you've been here as long as you have and you're still happen to be asked the same rhetorical questions over and over and over again, what does it mean? You know, so they never see you as a whole, and they never see you as part of. They still see you as a fifth, three fifths. They still see you as subhuman. They don't see you as full because if they did, they would share the country. If they did, when you went to go get your medical done, they wouldn't say, well, black people medical is this and this is that and the other. You wouldn't have ghettos and you would not have Section 8s and etc. etc. I know anyone can claim that. However, Africa is the start of civilization, my brother. Africa is the start of everything that's foundation. And see, that is part of the DNA. That is what built America and Europe. Okay? That was the facts, Jack. So for your education and enlightenment, if they don't go over there and pillage off the motherland, they have no land. Did I say that again? If they don't pillage off the motherland, they have no land. Because that's how they built their foundation through Europe. Okay? So, foundational, but you still have ties. And that has been infiltrated all over. That's how it all leans itself across the pond. So they'll have another term in 20 years. You know, they won't call you Native American though. Mm, that's the one because that's the one. Beyond foundation, you're Native, but you weren't free. And legal documentation says you're not free. Now, yes, that is all true, but there's still ties and chains bound and gagged. So you can build something, but if someone infiltrates and takes over and has a say, and it's his story of his face that's on those dollar notes, who were slave owners, who built the Constitution, who wrote national anthems, who were slave owners, tell the truth. Just like if you come at me about the electoral college vote, which is used to this day for presidencies and the popular vote, that was chained to slave quarters and properties. So that is all fine and dandy, but if you don't have a say, it's a white man's world, country. But they sell you in school about Christopher Columbus. They don't care about what you're saying. So what you saying, I can clap to. But at the same time, they still gonna tell you that Columbus 1492. They still gonna tell you about. I like how you try to come and be sly, like you want to be deep. I'm very familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson, but the reality is we don't operate like that in America, Jack. You know better than that. We talking corporate America. We're talking the whole thing. They've done what they want to do. See, you like to talk these games and like it's all been all even, and it's not. Black Wall Street was a separation. Everything was a separation, but they built everything off the backs. When they built Wall Street to building up the White House, anything you want to talk about foundationally, these colleges, these Ivy League schools, all that off the backs, separate and unequal. That's why they had to start black colleges and so on. All that stuff. So, if you're gonna tell it, tell the whole nine before you call someone obtuse and try to use big words and try to sound slick. It's not playing because you are in two different countries in one country. So you have to tell both sides of the coin. Or didn't they teach you that in the Navy when you were there? Of course, I know that by the time you were in the Navy, they did not have separate barracks and quarters, and they did not fundamentally pass over you for positioning. Well, they do that, Charlene, and I can understand why you're saying what you're saying because they say that because it's always tries to. We were part of here. The problem is that yes, we were. However, it's a way to kind of romanticize slavery. It's a way to kind of romanticize the pain. No, because to put this in perspective, slavery never ended. That's why they have prisons. The prison complex still adheres to the slave code, so it's not over. And civil rights, if this Trump thing, these tickets are passed, they can actually bend some of the rules, which was only done in 64. So, no, there's still a fight. The rights to vote, there's still a fight. So, no, it ain't really ended. It's been what we call glazed and done in a way to kind of like make it appear that it's inclusive, but it ain't inclusive. I'm gonna say this again in English the best way I know how, because I don't think people be trying to hear me though. You don't have ghettos and Section 8s and all these other things that are separate, but are fundamentally assigned to you and are richest in the country, etc., if you don't see people lower than below you. So I am remembered what Chris Rock once said. The poorest white man wouldn't trade places with me on this stage. Chris Rock said that on stage, which is true. Because they still think they fundamentally better because of what they've had. But it is geared towards black folk. Let's keep that 100. It always comes back to us because that's fundamentally the first thing you when you hear the term. Charlene is 100% correct. And I'll tell you why. Yes, we were here and we are natives. However, I'm not saying what I'm not a Chris Rock fan. I just making a point about how you could be the most successful black person and the world's least common white person will look down upon you and won't even sniff at you. I'm just making that as a point. The thing is, we all that's what made it's not called the States of America, it's the United States. Why it's called United is because everybody's ancestry came somewhere. That idiot Trump right now, his family's from Germany. He wasn't born and bred in the States. His wife wasn't born and bred in the States. Ooh, did I strike a chord? So fundamentally, no one has the rights to it to just 100, but no one has a right to be enslaved to build it without being compensated. And that's the reality what we bump up against. Who gave the right to people to fundamentally use funds and from other countries and sources to enslave, to prosper, and to set people back? And you cannot give someone a 400-year head start and say, okay, we're all even now. And that's the reality in all shapes, walks of life. It's the reality, you know. So it is. Charlene is making points because it took all of that to make America. But let me tell you a story. Oh, what's up, Calvin Jackson? I'm going to give that to Stevie Nicks. Welcome. Charlene is right because Ellis Island, 1917, the Italians came over the boat from Italy. People came to the New World, start off in the plants and all that. That's what plant work, that's where all that came from. When they went to get when they had students who would come over for summers and so on and so forth, they came from overseas. That was sponsors, all that. That's part of the United States. That's how Trump's family came over. You know, so it's a historical situation. This ain't just happening last 30. This is part of what brought the country to what it is. How you think you have Chinatown in some of these places in the states and San Francisco and on the Bay in different places. I go from New York to Frisco, and everybody has their own community and their own culturally set up. How is that? That's called United States. It's not States of America. They were allowed to fundamentally set up and have places of business. So that's how you incorporate the doctrine. See, if we're going by your logic, Marcus G. You're sounding here saying, well, we've all had equal footing to be fundamental. Well, it had equal fundamental because they put people in places, but it took people from coming from other places to build the country. That's why it's called the United States, not the States of America, and that's the difference. No one is unlearned as you are, because we're not on equal footing, and it ain't no we. We build, yeah, we had a big hand in it, but what do we get for it? Where's our reparations? Where's our 40 acres and a mule? From France, too, by the way. Thank you, Calvin. And they whitewash everything that you can imagine. So where's this we coming from? We ain't got no money. We ain't got no. Tupac Shakur said it best. We can't build a $10 million place in the hood. We don't get that luxury. We're forced out to move and go to other places. We don't get that as others do. So others get to build and do what they want to do. Who gets to pass legislation? You know, we've had one black president, and how many year times have we been in this country? That you call that progressive? Two term, but one. A lot of people went a lifetime without seeing one. One black VP after all this time. Three black Supreme Court justices. Less than a hand of black governors. Well, your IQ might say that, but you come across like your shoe size is a negative 12. I don't care how high your IQ is. That ain't impressing me. Because you see, you talk like everything's on equal footing, or it has been. And you get upset because no one wants to celebrate in a rinky dink 4th of July when the people were enslaved and they supposed to be kumbaya and supposed to act like lynchings and all the other stuff didn't happen. So that's what I get out of you. You know, you can be tested 4 times. That still don't mean that you enlightened. You know, that's not impressing me much at all. Talk common sense. When you talk common sense, you know we ain't where we supposed to be. And we still talking about we still got ways to go. We're not where we supposed to be. If you gonna sit here and act like that you somehow can equate to a Dr. King, Marcus Garvey, to Malcolm X, to Medgar Evers, to the Black Panther Party, I don't think so. I would want him if he would balance. He ain't got no balance though. His game ain't got no balance. He talking like we've all been on equal footing. We know who built the country and put stuff. Do you get treated like that though? Are you represented like that though? See, I tell anybody, I said, well, the educational system doesn't acknowledge you. They're trying to DEI you out. They're trying to whitewash you out. They're trying to wash Jackie Robinson out as a Navy Air Force man. Yeah, well, Marcus G talk about Jackie Robinson right when the Dodgers go to visit the White House, right when Jackie Robinson was the first black baseball player. He was a four-star college school athlete, Navy man, airman, all that. Tuskegee talk about that, but no, so that does counter against the argument of saying stuff because you're not included. And so it's nice and fine and dandy. Now, look, much respect to the brother, living good, got his house, family, eating good, all that. That doesn't change the fact. Sometimes there's others of us who just see things a little bit differently. And we don't like what we see. And we know it's not inclusive. And we know it's not fair. So thanks for coming through, Calvin. So some people have to vent and fire off and brag. That's okay. He gonna think he's talking above. Charlene brought up a great point, which is very true. People came from all over. It's the United States. It's not the states of America. See, the whole mess that Trump is pulling is a bunch of cap. They took the names off of that, and they're still trying to hit blanks at Emmett Till as I talk right now. They really don't want people to know the truth. They whitewash so much. And when you try to have these conversations and enlighten, people look at you crazy and think you know. And that's the sad reality. They'd rather be sucking on a barbecue rib than writing down the script of what's going on. They'd rather drink a 40 than to have to study and understand the compromise of what's going on. Because once you really start to see it, it really opens your eyes. You're no longer in the dark unless you choose to be. And there's some turkeys who don't mind that. But I'm telling you, on this channel, I don't do that. They sure do. They sure do. They sure do. Everything is cool if we laughing and grinning and just tolerating. And no, Diddy ain't no hero, but I am glad Diddy won his case, but he ain't no hero. He sold out and he sold his soul. But when we start putting Rico on a black man and an entertainer, give me a break. That's when you start to think, oh, well, we even, huh? That's a hilarious situation in itself. A black entertainer hit with Rico. This is crazy. And see, you're gonna have people saying, "Well, we had an Obama, we had a Caitlyn, and Kamala, and we had three support." You can't erase the first that you still have. You still got black families in the states that are just now getting their first black person going to college to graduate because of the segregation and the and the effects and the economics. Economical, you don't build capital. Yeah, tell them, Calvin. Tell them. He's no different than Diddy, except that Elon Musk put $250 million up on him, got him out, and let him slurp up the Putin and slurp up all these agendas, and bought and paid for. It's complexion for protection, as Paul Mooney used to always say. And I've tried to tell some jive turkeys who don't want to hear the facts, and they're like, "Oh, you always make it race." No, America made it racial. America made it what it is. It was before me, it'll be after me. They did it. I didn't do jack. I didn't do jack. I didn't do jack. It was there before me. want to act like these things don't exist, or how they want to sweeten it up. And you know I bet you one thing, Obama wouldn't have had no 34 count. He wouldn't have been sitting up in there. I tell you that. How much you want to bet? Diddy basically gotten is in trouble for basically going to somewhere and picking up a known, lady of the night. And that's what it basically is. That's an expensive charge. That don't even make no sense. And that judge is ridiculous for keeping them in there because you lost. And it was an embarrassing case. And it should never even came to that. And I'm not no Diddy fan, but that was embarrassing. Wasted people's tax money and time for all that garbage. That's what we live in too. Because people love some crazy tribute, stuff that don't even. If you watching this video, when I do put this on the podcast, you'll catch me because we don't get along. That's all. Yeah, but you know what? It's better to speak your piece. Sometimes you best to just speak your piece. If you don't say nothing, then they think that you soft in the head. I'm not letting nobody get off on that. I'm not gonna be impressed because of what you. I'm listen. I'm proud of you. If you got a nice home, car, family, eating good, bless your soul, and that's what. But don't act like we aren't dealing with real issues, especially in a country that everything has been racially based. That's a fact. Because try driving and walking while black and the police messing with you. Try thinking, you I can give you examples. You go to the doctors, they say, well, African Americans have this such a thing. Try going to get your eyes checked. Well, black people will come to get glaucoma. I mean, I didn't had all that happen. Been through all that. They always remind me everywhere I go. You go in there, they ask you what your race is when you go do stuff. You go get a job. What's your ethnicity? When you go apply for something, those things is real. So don't come at nobody saying that stuff is like, cause it's reality. If they didn't care, they wouldn't ask. If you was always an American, they would say you was always American. They wouldn't try to type you. They type you, and that's how they get you. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. And yeah, I might go on a rant about it, but so be it. You never the cat gonna come in. Charlene, I mean, I'm sorry if you got offended with that turkey. I definitely want to put him in check though. There are fundamentals of being black that were born in the States. That's a fact. But ancestry is connected, and they did pilfer through Africa, and they did bring people through the Atlantic, and it is part of our DNA because I do my DNA researches and checks. We are connected through that. And so that is a fact. So people to sit here and try to act like that's a us and them. We're in the same boat. That's what they do. Ask questions later and scare you first. The boogeyman syndrome, which is real. Well, it's real. When you've been profiled, you never forget it. I had it happen to me a few times. The last time I got off from work, funny story. I had my receipt, had my checkout in my bag. They never asked them none of that. They were just so quick to just say, oh, you gotta be guilty. They do that because they try to separate us, and that's a giving a code because they don't want to give up them reparations. That's what it is. Oh yeah, I understand. And that stuff stays with you for life because it's like you. And I'll tell you like this, Calvin, on the real. You don't, you always in the back of your mind. As I know it happened to me. It's like I don't know if it's gonna happen tomorrow, next Tuesday, a month from now, 3 months, a year or two. But you always in the back of your mind, it could happen again because once they do it to you, it's a violation, and that's how they violate you. And so I want to hear somebody white come up and say, "Yeah, got to worry about police harassment, brutality." I've never heard that. Yeah, well, they've always separated, Charlene. That's just a fact. They've been able to do that because it's been controlled. Even though 10 times out of 9 in America, you got a white cousin because of the names and the language and how they did all that. But they'll never claim you. And that's how they've been able to separate. It's the most dysfunctional thing you can imagine. So, well, Mary Grace, that is true. However, we talk about how people are treated in America. How do you justify that in Europe when they had slaves, though? Yes, you sell to people, but what happens when people have access to those people and they said contents and then they have it documented that they will treat them like slaves? So, yes, Africa is not off by no stretch, and you are 100% correct. However, when you have access to the people and then you allow Jim Crowism to take over, you allow people to have to be forced to go to separate schoolings, to separate bathrooms, to separate dormitories. In the military, you can't be in the same thing. You can't get job positionings. Then explain that away. I did. I said Stevie Nicks. And I did like Pat Benatar, but Staying Back. Come on now, you and I know why you did that because of the Prince connection. But I did like Staying Back. That synth was sick. That's back when she was messing with Jimmy Iovine too. That's that old Stevie Nicks. So when you say that, make sure you tell the whole truth. See, it's always convenient to say and Africans ain't off the hook by no stretch. However, when the people got people to see it land, they treated them even worse. They took their names. And what they also did is that they auctioned them off and they kept a fundamental way of keeping them regulated to rules. So that is still a bad look. And it's one thing when people sell you off, it's another when people take it upon themselves to make your life separate. And they try to belittle you every chance they get to this day. And yet they auction you, and yet they want to have used you. Oh yeah, they've been doing it all along. Because United Shades of America, I watched that Showtime. The black farmers didn't get the same grants as their white counterparts. And that was when there was a Democratic in the White House. So let me make sure that I am politically fair and balanced when I say what I say. Just because there are people here who will say, well, you got to be some liberal, you got to be some Democrat. No, they both suck. They both racist. They both trash on both sides. And for the record, Bill Clinton taught Trump a lot of what he knows as a politician because Clinton was a Dixiecratic and he was a Republican. So I don't want to hear about one side of that. They both on the same side of the coin. It makes no difference at the end of the day. It always lends back to the same thing. It's funny how independent parties and green parties barely can get 2 or 3% of a vote. It's amazing. He offered it to her, but it was kind of like a joke. The story was is that you did you read the whole story? Him and Dr. Fink were in Detroit somewhere, and the story is they going to go see Bob Seger, and Bob Seger inspired because he thought this was like some middle of the road kind of song. That's how it came about, but it wouldn't have worked for Stevie Nicks no way. And he also had to call Journey because faithfully the chord progressions sound a lot like what ended up becoming Purple Rain. So that's no story. He still didn't go as far as he could have gone though. He still didn't go as far as he could have. And he didn't and they didn't cast aside to protect him. So Democrats are not off the hook. And there's always been a double, one side not a balance. And I, like I said before, I don't. None of them politicians get no pass from me. Yeah, I know. You know, you're a Prince historian to go along with about African American experience. Yeah, there's a lot of story to that song. He originally had cut it in '79. Mm-hmm. I go back with Prince, amongst other artists. He used to stockpile a lot of material for years. It's like you'll tell me like Raspberry Beret and I Can Never Take Place of Your Man were both cut in '82. He had all that done. Yeah, he did. That's what most artists do that are pretty prolific. They tend to have stuff, scattered. It's like when Michael Jackson had Earth Song back in '89. He was sitting on songs for years. Liberian Girl was an outtake from the Victory album. Wanna Be Starting Something was an outtake from Off the Wall. So, that's pretty common. And ironically, I can't help it. The one that Steve Wonder gave for Off the Wall for Michael was an outtake from Songs That Kill Life. There's always stories, songs, artists doing that. So, artists sit on material for years. I did too. I followed him. Um, I didn't care for the first album, and I liked parts of the second album. Dirty Mind was the first album of his that I said, okay. And in Controversy in 1999, that was my purple trinity, if you will. So, being honest on that. I know he had talent and stuff like that, but I liked, I think he got better as time went on. Still think 1999 is probably his funkiest album, his best production year. I thought Sound of Times was his peak and his prime. And everything in between, he was, and of course, as a live artist, I think that's where he was really his bread and butter for me. Because as an RM artist, I think he was kind of hit and miss. Because I can. I thought it was a cute song. I didn't think it was nothing special. It sounded like he was listening to Tower Power at the concert, and I didn't think it was nothing special. I'm not impressed by Biden because he's the one who locked up black people with the whole 92 bill. So, um, Purple Rain was a bit overrated to me. That was too milky white for me. I thought Dove's Cry was a great song. Baby, I'm a Star, and I like Purple Rain. Let's Go Crazy, I like the long version, but I thought he was trying to cross over too much. 1999 was funky for me. I've listened to all that already. Before you come in here, you act like I'm some newbie to Prince. I listen to Prince. I go back. I what you want? 94 East, the Rebels. What you want? You want to go on the Prince? You want to have a Prince debate? I ain't the one. I listened to all that stuff. I was very much into the whole Minneapolis sound with Peppy Willie, with everything with the time, with Vanny Six, Apollonia Six, Sheila E, the family, Maserati, 3 o'clock, Del Bazio, Madhouse Situations, everything with Eric Leeds. I listen to all that. I don't think he tried enough because he, again, you can't do anything with that crime bill. Him and Clinton were both on there. I said it was overrated. I didn't really like the record on the whole. Of course, Jill Jones, who was pretty much the first lady of Paisley Park. You know, if Susan Moonsie could have halfway sung, he probably would have had her. But I already know about the crossover, what he was doing. I know exactly his plot and plan. Jill Jones was an artist who did a lot of hook work for Prince. And she's actually on Facebook. She's on Instagram. I follow her. She's already she had our solo album in '87. She was the blonde that was in Purple Rain. She was in Graffiti Bridge too. She's the one that took off her underwear in the streets. If you ever saw that ill-fated movie. So Jill was in the 1999 video with Lisa Coleman. The 1999 album was funky. Yep. Jill was bad. Jill could sing. Prince did her cold, but that's a whole nother story. We don't sit here talking about that all day. But he did a lot of people cold, but he did her cold. But you know, but she talks from time to time. Hmm. She started off singing background with Tina Marie and working with Rick James. She was on Motown. Her step daddy was Barry Gordy's brother. So it's a whole lot of story goes on with that in the Gordy clan. You want to say Tina Marie? You want to say Tina Marie? They grew up together. One thing I'm going to tell you is in that industry, everybody's kind of related to one another, though. So there ain't really much trivia there because, yeah, when, She's Always in My Hair was written about her. And Hello, she's in the background. And she was the girlfriend mentioned in the song. And if you listen to Kiss, the long extended version, that's her at the end mocking Prince. So they had and she's also a lady cab driver, the driver. Jill is all over a lot of Prince's stuff. She did background vocals on the Times albums, Vanity Six Records, Sheelys. She was all over a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. It was supposed to be like from Madonna. That was the back of the limousine. And that was crazy too. Don't ask me because that's like I say, I go back in the day. Stuff was crazy back then. And he cut that with Sheila. They cut that record together, but her voice is like almost so mid. It's so low because in the mix, the way he has her voice kind of like on the hip though. He had to force her into being a solo artist though. He really had to clean that up. That's a whole nother story. I ain't know we're gonna turn this into the Prince thing, but yeah, I mean, I got Prince stories galore. Mhm. But Jill Jones's connection when Gordy marriage, and then with the whole thing living with Tina and all that. No, they're not related. He came and confirmed they weren't. They just happen to have the. No, he used the other F word. No, they're not. The come out wasn't though. He said they weren't. I follow Haywood Nelson. I follow him on Facebook. But the one thing that would loan yourself to thinking they were was because if you go back 40 years ago, there was an episode of What's Happening Now. Uh, he said there was a celloist on the episode on the harp, and he said, Can you play Raspberry Beret?" I remember that. She did. Sheila was saying that, and Sheila said that's one of the reasons why she left Prince because she thought he was too vulgar. It was funny. I don't know why you're so shocked. Yes, it's an iconic movie, and the imagery is there. I wasn't blown away by the album. It didn't knock me out. I wouldn't call myself a hater because the title track was great. I liked it. Some people divided. Doves Cry was still a classic song, and Baby I'm a Star. It's a tight song. But a lot of that stuff, what? I didn't care if I would die for you. I thought that was soggy and corny. I liked the long version. Uh, Darling Nikki, I like, but I mainly like it in the movie, the theatrics of it. Yes, 1999 was better. If you grew up in the hood, 1999 over Purple Rain. Thank you, Calvin. Black folk, that folk who like the funk, the bump, ain't nothing on Purple Rain touching DMSR. Okay? Doves is a better song, but DMSR is funk. He really went into you know, so yeah. But he happened to have a creative zenith where he hit. I'll give you that because I went to the concert. I saw that 40 years ago. He got on the white clear through outfit. Yeah. Lady Cab Driver was the Minneapolis sound with the horns, the backwards underwater drums. Yeah. He was in his zone. That's why that was the record that made, that's when you knew Prince was like, okay, that's a bad dude for that. He hit on all cylinders with that. Even though in hindsight, though, I don't care for Delirious and Let's Return Remember too tough. They too much the same. And I think, but Little Red Corvette, I like the long version better. International Lover is cool because of the vocals. And then Morris Day was on the drums on it, which you already know. Morris was on the drums on that. When he says Mayday, Mayday, and the bass was on, that's when I was like, okay, yeah. Because the regular version was cute and soft, but the 12-inch made that song have some fire. And of course, if you ever on TikTok, the Mylene, the one that inspired Lady Cab Driver, she'll let you know front and center, but she was the reason that inspired Little Red Corvette, Mylene. So Mylene is all over there. You, you'll see the woman that inspired Little Red Corvette. She'll let you know. She's got a whole kind of stuff. Girl was tight. And if you listen to the drums and the whole, he must have cut that around the same time he did "Do Me Baby" because it's all in the same cadence. Which, for all I know, Morris probably played drums on "Do Me Baby" too, because they all cut in the same cadence. The groove all sounds the same, just like chlorine bacon skin. They cut all that in the same cadence. Or him and Morris would get together, they find like two or three grooves, and they make like albums out of it. And back then they were making like 6 tracks, so that's why you can't always go by what they say as far as the credits. Prince and Morris did a lot. Sometimes others would come along here and there. I got used to the Minneapolis Cats chord progressions though. Everybody pretty much played keys the same. Yeah. Irresistible sounds just like chlorine bacon skin with those drums and that bass. And what he was doing with the bass, the keyboard, the vocals, and he was like giving like a rap. That's what he was doing. So that was like his foray. That was as street as Prince was gonna get with that. Mm. Well, if you're talking about the concert version, because that's as long as ago, I heard, you know, and you do know Andre Simone wrote that song too, so just throwing it out there. That's a whole nother story, another video. And he just started to get royalties for Do Me Baby in 2014. That's the story too. As a matter of fact, when I used to read Right On Magazine, the old story, Lisa Coleman and Wendy Melvin were clowning. I think Lisa was clowning on Prince because she said, "You know that's somebody else's song." So he said, "Guess who's gonna get the credit?" Because Andre wrote that. So that's been known though. There's a lot of stuff where Prince is concerned where, stuff got kind of, and I think that's one reason why him and Jesse Johnson are falling out. Credits got messed up, money got messed up. People ain't taking nothing away. Yeah, I know about Love of Money. And I think Morris played on that. I read that on one of the versions he had a hand on that. Because that track was sitting in the can. And that was an obvious nod to Sly and the Family Stone. Speed of voice and the groove. 1979, there's a tape. And then, okay, genius, explain why Prince was was paying Andre Simone publishing. He got a royalty check. Look it up. There's no line. He got paid in 2014. He did an interview, and it was known that he wrote the song originally. And actually, it was off of Eddie Hazel from P Funk, because I can't think of the song right now, but that's what inspired it. But that was sitting in the can since '79. Just like Andre wrote Uptown, he co-wrote Uptown for Prince because that was his bass groove. Which also you can make the case for Let's Work. Okay, you ain't dealing with no amateur here on this Prince issue situation. I just don't be calling it out because we don't talk around talking about Prince. I don't say I'm talking about unless you mention a certain artist, but he was known for tagging people's stuff. I know what he did, but that's not what we're talking about. He was known for taking people's stuff. See, he took that whole groove from "I Wanna Be Your Lover" at the end. That instrumental was cut down by some locals, and he put that on the record. And the story used to be, if you don't want your records on the Warner Brothers record, stay away from Prince. He was known for doing that. You're not talking to some kids, so watch your tone. I know what people do for business. James Brown did that with his kids back in the day. That's nothing. That's because it puts a little money on them, and it's also to keep the tax person off of them, and that puts some money in the coffers. But I'm also saying that, hey, there were people that contribute who never got their credit. I wasn't that busy. I like Be a Lover and I like Sexy Dancer. I wasn't blown away by the record because I didn't think his voice had quite gotten into full depth. He sounded soulful, but I think the record was just still on the sugary side. At that time, he sounded like a junior whopper Michael Jackson who hadn't quite found his groove. You could tell there was stuff there. I said he wasn't talented. Why you want to treat me so bad? I like the synth groove and all that. But his keyboard parts, for instance, like when I listened to "I Feel for You," right? He had that elephant sounding keyboard part in that song. He didn't quite smooth it out. The layering didn't quite smooth out. He smoothed it out once he got the controversy. Like he was smoothed out. He was still. You just don't want to give Andre Simone his due. That's all. Why are you even wasting your time talking to me? You don't want to give Andre Simone his due. Andre Simone wrote, and it was a known fact. Diz Dickerson and them, those cats played. Prince got sued by Levi Caesar, Tony M for not paying cats properly. That's court documented. Okay, that's not no hyperbole. Um, the mixing was like sounded like it was out of a tin can. He didn't really, he didn't really go for high gloss mixing, and it showed. But it wasn't that wasn't a problem with that. It's just that again, once he found his groove with Dirty Mind. He found his, as far as I'm concerned, that was the real him. And once he got, that's where he started to, and he said as such, you know, the most honest album he made because that was the turning point of his career. And that's not to take anything away because the talent was there, and but that was the rawness of him that came out that really, and then once every rocket, to 1999, I think that's where. But if I'm gonna be honest, I ain't gonna sit here and tell you that I like any of his albums all the way through. 1999 was kind of the closest. He had records that I like, but he had songs that I dug more when he hit. Like what you like. I gathered that because you got pretty defensive about Andre Simone co-writing, which I just was giving credit. I never said Andre Simone had the career Prince did. I ain't gonna say that. He had an impact on the man's career, there's no doubt, as did others. Morris Day did too. They always said they had the same career. I don't think they are. I don't think they are. Hall of Fame quality to me is Stevie Wonder's 70s run. That's Hall of Fame. Coming where I'm coming from to about Songs of the Kid Life, that's Hall of Fame quality. Prince's first six albums ain't seen no Stevie Wonder's Talking Book, Inner Visions, First Finale, and Songs of the Kid Life. They ain't seen that run. When I look at Prince's records, I like Dirty Mind a lot. Controversy was really good, and 1999 was like, I'll give you that. His three great albums can hold up to anybody's what you want to put in the argument. That's why he's such a standard. He overspent on that first record budget because he had to get that Downey guy, William Downey, I think it was a percussionist. His dad happened to be a lawyer. He had to get him out the hole because Prince had spent too much money, and the budget came in, so he had spent too much money. So that's what ended up happening with that. He had a bad deal. Stevie is a standard. You know, Stevie's a standard. For me, I'm always debating Stevie and Michael Jackson for me because what they did as child artists and their careers for me, they're like my two, you know, us as the standards that I say, the standards. But Stevie's songwriting is still otherworldly production, you know. But you know, so it all depends on where you come down. I take nothing from nobody. I got, again, I hate to get into, the a lot of the. I have artists that I like more than others, but I'm not taking nobody's talent away though. Mm-mm. That's a tough business to to do your thing. Yeah, but she didn't have what Vanity had though. She didn't have what Vanity. Vanity had a certain aura about her, y'all. She had an aura, and yeah, they started off unlike anything I've ever seen as far as that go. I mean, that was unheard of, black or white. That Michael Jackson's career is like in its own orbit. So, I, you know, I have eras of his that I like better than others. Nobody that I can think of dominated like that guy did though. I think that guy had the most dominant career I ever seen. She became saved. She became a Christian. She renounced her old life. What do you mean so sad? What she became? It's sad that she got sick the way she did, and the men she encountered, the men didn't do her any justice. That's the sad part, Prince included. None of the men that she was involved with in her personal life loved her, and just and that's the problem. That's the sad part. But the fact that she got saved and she gave herself away, you know, I think that that was a testament. Prince was very sad when he was talking about her on the stage at the end because you know, and it put things in perspective because she had been taken for granted. He lived his whole life, and that's what happened. And then that's all he knew, 95% of his life, which it is crazy because you took care of your whole family, you never had a real life, and people screaming and grabbing at you, and you just was out of orbit. Well, Prince wanted his cake and eat it too. He did a lot of the women dirty, and he used to write songs and act like he was the victim. That was the funny thing about Prince. Prince was a cap, was a cap, and he'd be all upset. But hey, you drove her to another man. You know, he was catchy. He was catchy. He wasn't the most talented cat, but he had that kind of personality that it definitely was a pop artist. He definitely had a pop thing. Andre Simone worked with him too. He was catchy, you know. And that's what you need. You know, it ain't always just based on your talent. You gotta have something that he had a catchiness about him. She messed with Billy Idol. She was Julian Lennon. She got around, but she was industry though, and that's the sad part. You end up becoming a welcome mat. That's the sad part about the business. Not every woman did. I know some chicks who didn't. I know some who didn't. Yeah, I already said that. There's a funny story about that too, because I think Jesse Johnson was living at his house at the time because they were roomies, and Jill was gonna tear up the house. It was something that went down. It was a crazy story. He lived a life, and it seemed to be the end all be all, but then he also felt like he was trapped by his own success. So he juggled a lot. How do we get to OJ? Mm, Prince had it going on back in the day. I mean, it was cool. Ain't nobody gonna take nothing away from it at that time. At that time, but just you gotta remember something: masters of illusion don't make you a happy person. It appears everything is a certain way, but then that thing gets old too. So, story goes, he was always still chasing after Vandy though, and he ended up marrying women that kind of looked like her, and he had a certain thing. No jealousy at all. What make you even say such a stupid thing like that? I said the man was cold, and he was cold back in the day. I also saw a cat that when he did that Rolling Stone interview 40 years ago, where Susanna Muncie wanted to come over, Melvin came over, and she said, "You seem like you're lonely," and he said, "No, just." He seemed like he was trapped by what he had created. Not hardly. Yeah, see, you're old school cat when you say Susan Muncie. She was bad too. And you know the thing about it is she stayed out of the spotlight forever and a day. I'm not even saying anything about Michael. I just, all I did was because this person comes on here and was give about Prince writing all this stuff, and I was just talking about he didn't give credits, and I was just talking about certain eras that I like more than that. I'm not getting into who's better than that. Yeah, I prefer Michael over him, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that he didn't have his place and that he wasn't great because Prince was a great artist. He was erratic because he put out too much stuff. Michael didn't put out enough stuff. So if I could have had a happy medium between both of them, would have been interesting. But Prince was great on stage, a real humanitarian. It was like he was frustrating because of how he would do folks and set things up. Things could have been done a lot better, but he got wiser as he got older. He definitely changed, and I think that he got better in terms of his energy. His energy. Not a Michael. No, 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 no. Because I got issue with Michael. And the first of all, some of his records were uneven after the Dangerous record, if you must know. He had the career that you would want. He was the most dominant artist. And I think his Jackson 5 era through probably his bad era or dangerous era, like he could do no wrong for a while. But that didn't mean there were things I would have loved to seen him do musically. I would have loved to seen him do a James Brown, Jackie Wilson tribute, a gospel album, an unplugged record, strip it down. Because once he got seduced by that whole larger than life, if he needed Quincy Jones so bad, how come he hit with Teddy Riley? And what was his career before Quincy Jones with Jackson 5 era through Destiny and Triumph? Not quite. What did Quincy Jones exactly do without Michael Jackson after Thriller and Bad and Off the Wall? He made the same old records over and over again. Quincy was a great arranger who understood how to produce, but he wasn't much of a songwriter, and he had a lot of helpers in his own self. They both benefited from each other, but if you ask me, Michael won that war. He was. How do you have the machine? You have to have the talent, though. If you don't have the talent, they don't put the machine behind you. So you're talking about Monisa Leitner, who I follow on Facebook, and she's on Instagram. She's cool people too, and she did an interview I think on the Prince podcast. Check it out. The brother out of Seattle, Michael Dean. He's a real cool cat. Check him out if you haven't. She did an interview. That was a few years ago. She talked about that. They went to Epic and they saved their careers genius. The first two records were Gamble and Huff, produced Enjoy Yourself and Let Me Show You the Way to Go. They almost got dropped until the Destiny album came out. Blame It on the Boogie, Shake Your Body Onto the Ground. That changed their fortunes. They almost got dropped. But then Triumph hit. They ended up working with Quincy. It was after the Wiz thing. They did actually did quite well on Epic because they hit a gold album the first out. Destiny went multi platinum, and then they hit with the Triumph album, the Jackson line. That's the thing. That's what these people who still be bringing up this old tired argument don't understand. If you sign to a major company and they put money on you, invest in you, it's all the machine. They expect you to hit. I love it when people act like Prince didn't have the machine of Warner Brothers behind him. Lenny Kravitz had the machine of Virgin Records behind him. They all got a machine. Well, the thing is that everybody has a machine that's with a big label. This is just thing. Prince did this. I want my cake, knife, forks. He wanted best of both worlds. He wanted to act like he was the underdog, but yet he wanted to be treated like the kingpin. And then they use Madonna. No, he doesn't play 20 instruments. It's formations of keyboards, drums, bass, and guitar and piano. And that's the reality. They manipulate it because there's many forms of synthesizers and keyboards, and but the guitar, bass, drum, it's a standard four. He's not a horn player, you know, brass. But the bottom line is Charlene is right about this. I don't care if you play 100. They put money behind you. They expect you to be profitable. And then Prince act like he didn't know what that was. He didn't play 20 instruments. That was something that they concocted to sell him at the first album. The For You record, because he used hand claps and finger snaps. I remember because I had the albums and all that. He didn't play strings. He didn't play no brass. You know, that's the difference. The other thing about Michael, I know about the keyboards. And then I heard a great story by Greg Fillinganes. Greg Fillinganes, the keyboard player, session cat, songwriter, producer, said one time there was somebody behind this curtain popping on these drums, and he wondered who that was, and it was Michael. He obviously had rhythm because the cat would tap his shoes and he danced. He literally danced his songs. So he had music in him. He was very musical. No, he wasn't an instrumentalist like Prince. No. He couldn't touch Prince as far as that kind of instrumentalist. No. But he was musical. Don't diss Charlene, please. Prince did not play 20 instruments. It was keyboards, guitar, bass, and drums. There are progressive parts that are offshoots of that. So, for instance, if you're a synthesizer player, now he did play keyboards. He played keys and he played drums. Those were the main two. That was it. I know the album credit says guitar and bass and all that, He may have thumbed at it, but guitar, but the keyboards were for sure. He played keyboards. He knew how to write off and do enough on the keyboard, and he definitely knew how to do drums. And the voice is an instrument too. If you think it ain't, try to make some of that stuff work. But I'm going to say for the record, no, he was not the instrumentalist that Prince is. A lot of cats aren't the instrumentalists that Prince is. That's the one thing Prince had going for him. The other problem, the only thing with Prince is that at the production, I seen it. At the production, the only problem where I veer with Prince is sometimes as a songwriter and putting the songs together. His musicianship carried a lot of that stuff. That's a fact. Him being hit and miss with me had to do with the songs, not his musicianship. He played piano. That's all I got through saying. Piano keyboards is one and the same, and he drummed. He did that. Now, was Michael Jackson playing like Sammy Davis Jr.? No. There is footage of him in the studios. Yes, it is. There was a documentary called Michael Jackson, the number ones, that came out 30 years ago. And he's in the studio on the keyboards. And he did play. Now, was he to the level of saying that he was going to, play it like Prince did? No. Or like Lionel Richie? No. And the thing is that, again, Charlene is right. It doesn't make a takeaway because if the artist move, you got to have the songs at the end of the day. You got to have the songs. You can be a one man band. He played. I seen it. I seen it. He had a chord progression that he would use, and of course when he wasn't beat bopping, but but no, he wasn't an instrumentalist like Prince was. No, I'm not even gonna tell no lies. That's a fact. As far as playing instruments go, Prince runs circles around them. That's not, but that doesn't mean that Prince was better. It's just that he played, he could create. Now it comes down to the songs. I don't use that as a criteria. I don't. I don't. With nobody. With nobody. Because whether you play or you don't, your music, your song still got to move me. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. At the end of the day, do your songs, Like I'll give you an example. Take Part Time Lover by Stevie Wonder. Luther Vandross just did the scat on that. And that was better than Stevie Wonder's music on that one. So fill you up. Because Toad, that rockabilly thing that he would do would kind of like, mm, the Elvis, Chuck Berry, that whole, but that thing would get kind of like, and he made like 80 songs like that. But fill you up, I like the synth. I like the original with that cold synth bass groove. That was tight. I'm not standing. I like Michael a lot. I ain't standing. I don't fill you up. At first, I heard the demo version, and I heard the one where he had the horn part, and then he did the Camille part. So I heard the raw one, but he had that hard synth, and then I heard where he did the Camille one. So I like both of them. Oh, Prince has some cold demos. I mean, like the synth, like I said, the Jamie Starr era. Like he has some cold synth grooves that he did. I'm not gonna get into no war words about that. I already said what I said about that. I didn't like Gotta Stop Messing About. I again, he had these kind of tracks where it's like he cut them and they felt kind of rushed. I mean, I like the new wavy, edgy thing to an extent, but then it sounded kind of gimmicky. It's like he cut like 30 tracks like that, and it's all right. I had a buddy of mine who loved that though. It was rare at the time, but you know, some of it worked, but she never called nobody whack. saw that clip and I disagree. How you gonna say that? Because Wimby is nothing like Duncan. Yeah, he had cut. There was a song called Lisa that was for Dirty Mind. He had cut some outtakes. Some of that stuff was kind of like meant to be cut in room floor. Luca has got to prove himself with what he can do, and all this Cooper Cup. We ain't seen nothing yet, so I can't. Again, I ain't seen nothing come out. That doesn't justify the stuff. It just wasn't fit for the record. The time stuff he co-wrote with Morris and Dez, Tell the Truth, and he had some help with the Vandy Six stuff. Some of it. No, he. The difference was he was smart enough not to put everything out at the time. That was a smart thing. That's what also led to him fighting Warner Brothers. Unlike when he got on his own and he tried to squash every album in the '90s and stackpile, they were smart enough to tell him, no, that don't work. Because a lot of some of the stuff was not meant to be released. I think he tended to get it right, but was released. Now, what we like as fans is a rare outtake or a live performance, but most of the stuff that got put out to the public was the right stuff. A lot of that stuff that didn't make it, it didn't sound like it was worthy. I ain't heard nothing yet that I've heard from his vault, and I've been listening to his stuff for 40 years. Come out the vaults when it was around, you know. You can make a case for R. Kelly. I mean, in the R&B world, he did more for R&B. If you ask me all around artistry, Prince got him beat all around artistry. But if you ask for R&B, Kells got him beat. R. Kelly did a better job writing and producing for other people than Prince. I think that. I think if you go from an Aaliyah to an Ozzy Brothers to different things, yeah, well, Nasty Girl was a bigger song than anything Tomorrow in the Scene had. But Prince did Marge Cox Colo. That's another story, though. I did like the Tomorrow in the Scene Rocket, though, because Everybody Dance was my bump 40 years ago. And I did like Blueberry Gossip, but he didn't get no juice. You know, Prince when he worked with other people, they just sounded like outtakes. They didn't really take people. The only thing that really hit was with the time. And that's because Morris Day and the character. The Sheila stuff I liked, but then it kinda got stiff. You know, if it wasn't the hits, it got stiff. We're not gonna say that, Mary Grace. Please don't say that. Affection was his outtake from his review album because it made me think I want my girl. Because remember the ooh, he did a little chorus part. Well, because Prince did that thing on what was it on the first album? I want to say In Love. There's a certain part. Oh, it does. Glamorous Life hits because that was a well written song. Yeah, we're not gonna get into that. Please refrain from that. Just stay on the topic. If you disagree, say you disagree. Let's not make this into something that don't need to be. Yeah, Glamorous Life was a great song. It was catchy, and everybody in my neighborhood used to try to play it on the piano. They learned them chords. That's what they learned. I don't want to be starting on necessary arguments about stuff. We just have to disagree about stuff. Everybody ain't gonna like Prince. Everybody ain't gonna like Michael Jackson. So you know, there are a lot of artists to spin the globe around. I don't have to go into no bashing. I don't think there's any artist that's just like universal that everybody's gonna say they all. That's what make the world go round. But yeah, good call, Calvin. That's a good call. He had this little vocal coder thing they did, but I like that percussion, that animal thing on everybody. Then, because I know he had a hand with Jungle Love. He had a better, well, yeah. Only thing was, Because R. Kelly was a dominant artist. His remixes are better than a lot of people's originals. Prince thought a lot of them because when the Bump and Grind was out, he went to go meet with R. Kelly's engineer named Peter Monaker. I don't know if you know about that or not. He went to Chicago to try to figure out how he got that sound with his engineering. I don't know if you know about that. And you can't deny R. Kelly's dominance. That's why he was considered one of the 10 greatest R&B artists ever. He dominated. I'm not gonna go off like Bootsy and Bow Wow and say he's the greatest R&B artist ever, but I'll say this: if it wasn't for his legal issues, and we just strictly talking music and what he did, he'd be top five. D'Angelo ain't got no body of work. He ain't got no body of work. He's talented, but that's almost like somebody that made a movie like 20 years ago. He's not better than R. Kelly. R. Kelly wrote better songs. R. Kelly had bigger impact. You can go from a bump and grind, I believe I can fly to an ignition, and then a step in the name of love, and do that in a decade. Come on now. D'Angelo ain't got the songs. He might be a better talent. I can tell you as far as playing an instrument, and can't say vocally though. Instrumentally, yeah. But R. Kelly was dominant. R. Kelly wrote songs. And he brought back careers. And he did a lot for a lot of careers. And not to mention all the hook work he did with rappers. Because chances are your favorite rapper had R. Kelly on the hook. Something Prince never did, something Michael Jackson couldn't do. But Prince put too much stuff out and R. Kelly put too much stuff out. They think they got that in common. Prince had his heyday in the 80s, R. Kelly had his in the 90s. So all I'm gonna say about this is a matter of yeah, there are people I know who will run who will say R. Kelly run circles over Prince because they saw R. Kelly's dominance, which you can make a case in the sense that with the work he did with rappers and his solo career and for others, he got one of the best resumes you could imagine. He do, whether you like him or not personally. Now, is he as talented as Prince was, an instrumentalist? No, I don't think so. But asking, did he have a career that would give it a run? Yes. R. Kelly got a lot going for him musically. Because people stay more loyal to R. Kelly in the R&B world than did Prince. Now Prince drew more as far it was more commercially bigger, yeah, and he had more of a pop audience. Again, instrumentally, that and what he did on stage, all that, I give Prince that. But are we talking about just right? We talking about hitting the songs and with careers, and we're talking about R. Kelly had an impact that, yeah. If I put it to you like this, if I go from the '90s to the time Prince departed, R. Kelly got him beat, just like he got Michael Jackson beat and others. I liked it, but I didn't love it. Addiction was cool, and I liked Tonight, but I thought Addiction had a nice groove to it. But Crazy was all right. Charlene, leave her alone though. I mean, we're not gonna get into. I don't want this to be because this is getting to be in a bit much. And Mary need to, just be cool. Disagree to disagree. That's all. If you like an artist, say you like an artist. If you want to put down somebody, give a constructive criticism, but don't be quick to bash. Babyface um, had a great career. Some might like it, some might not. Some might think it's repetitious. It all depends on who you ask. We need to like just concentrate on what we talking about. You know, I don't want to get into no dissing. Refrain from saying that too, because I have to take that off. I don't want no anything that comes across as offensive. Okay, so I already told Charlene to be cool, but please don't say anything like that. Okay, you don't like what she says about an artist, that's fine, but we're not gonna have anything that's That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to hear all that. I got no problem if you're a big Prince fan. You want to have debates, we can talk. As long as we start stick to music and we be respectful. I'm gonna say this respectfully. Please leave her alone. If you don't, I'm gonna have to remove you from this site because we're not in the game of bashing. I don't play that. I'm not gonna say your name. I just want you to show respect. And it sounds like you're trying to troll. So that's the last thing I'm gonna say about it. If I feel like trolling, it has to go. Because Charlene did not say anything that merited all that. You got mad because of what she questioned about, and that's the only problem with some people that are Prince fans. That they say, well, the instruments and throw that stuff up. She said fine, but there's no need to be dissing folks. Eventually, you'll be talking to yourself though. But I'll give it a go in just a second. That was a very good song. That was a big hit for Charlie Wilson too. What's the point? R. Kelly wrote it. What's the point? Charlie Wilson still got a very happening career as we speak right now. Well, like I said before, things have been said enough. So I don't want to be told to relax. I want you to apologize for being disrespectful to the woman because, some stuff didn't need to be said. They're grown people, and it's just respect. I'm going to, so give me another day. I had a lot going on. And now I'm not making excuses, but I did. Between that Diddy case and redoing all my videos, so I will sit down tonight for sure. Because I'll be back on tomorrow and I'll let you know. We're sorry that you was offended. However, if you want to have conversations about artists, be respectful of others, and just say that, hey, we just have to agree to disagree. So we'll apologize. But there is no need to call anyone out their name because you did ask her about her background, and that was a bit much. That's why we're coming. Me and Calvin was saying that to you. No one ever said anything about you from that perspective. So you did do that to Charlene. That was a bit much. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So if you want to be on this site again, maybe be cool with how you say certain things, especially if you cross certain lines with people's names, etc. And I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, Calvin, yeah, I'm going to check it out. I'll definitely be on it. I thought about that today. I was actually on here longer than I thought I was going to be on. So anyway, I will be back again. I'll be back tomorrow. So we'll, yeah, call it a night. appreciate when it came through. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay full, stay woke. And yeah, thanks again. We're gonna get this thing straight. All right, I'm out.